This edition of Time to Travel from London goes for a walk along the south bank of the Thames River in an area known as Southwerk, just across the river from the Tower of London. Construction of the tower began shortly after William the Conqueror became king in 1066. It's one of the most popular places to visit in London, most famous for its gruesome executions, including two of King Henry VIII's wives. It's also the home of the crown jewels of England. It's well worth taking the tour. From the tower, you get a great view of Tower Bridge, often confused with London Bridge further downriver. In keeping with the tower's dark history, just under the bridge there's a spot named Dead Man's Hole, so named because bodies thrown into the Thames wash ashore there because of the way the river flows. Tower Bridge is relatively new compared to the tower. The present suspension bridge opened in 1894. The red, white, and blue color scheme dates from 1977 to mark Queen Elizabeth's Silver Jubilee. The bridge has a museum. Visitors can see the motors that open and close the center span and can walk across the elevated walkways that connect the towers. The bridge is 801 feet long. An average of 40,000 people cross the bridge each day. Once on the other side, you begin the Queen's Way, a promenade that allows pedestrians to walk from Tower Bridge to Lambeth Palace across from Parliament. The Southwerk was a commercial area with lots of wharves and warehouses, but that's changed. This modern building is City Hall, headquarters of the Greater London Authority. It opened in 2002. Nearby is the Hayes Gallery, an area once filled with clipper ships carrying tea from India. Now it's filled with shops, restaurants, and this giant sculpture named the Navigators. Next, you pass by the HMS Belfast, a retired Royal Navy light cruiser commissioned in 1936. The Belfast saw action in World War II and Korea. It was destined for the scrapyard until a private trust purchased it and converted it into a maritime museum in 1971. This is London Bridge, at least the latest in a long line of London bridges that have stood here since medieval times. This London Bridge was built in 1973. It replaced a structure that was moved to Lake Havasu, Arizona. On the opposite bank, you can see a gold-tipped monument. It marks the site on Pudding Lane, where the Great Fire of London began in September 1666. The fire destroyed much of the city, including Old St. Paul's Cathedral. A few blocks inland from the river, you come to the Borough Market, one of the busiest and most colorful wholesale markets in London. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, it opens for retail customers. Vendors sell food, the kind that you can carry around while you're browsing. There are also restaurants and shops. Next to the market is the Southwerk Cathedral, constructed over 200 years beginning in 1220. Playwright William Shakespeare's brother Edmund is buried here. Rejoining the Queen's Walk, you come to a replica of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, opened in 1997. The original Globe, which stood nearby, was destroyed by fire in 1613. This Globe is a working museum, presenting the works of Shakespeare just as he staged them. From the Globe, you get a great view of St. Paul's Cathedral and the Millennium Footbridge. First, we visit the Tate Modern, a magnificent gallery built in the old Bankside Power Station. The Tate Modern, which is open to the public at no charge, is England's national gallery for international modern art. It opened in 2000 and is one of the world's most visited museums. The Millennium Footbridge also opened in 2000, but only for 3 days. There was so much swaying and wobbling that it had to be closed and retrofitted with stabilizers. The work took 2 years. The pedestrian-only bridge connects Bankside to the city, leading directly to St. Paul's Cathedral. The cathedral was designed by architect Sir Christopher Wren. Construction began shortly after the Great Fire of 1666. Wren is buried at St. Paul's, which is perhaps best known in our time for the royal wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana. The trip from the Tower to St. Paul's is a little over 2 miles as the crow flies, but there's a lot of walking in between as you explore. If you're feeling up to it, you can add a few more miles by exploring the city. Walk along Fleet Street. stopped for lunch at the Old Cheshire Cheese near St. Paul's. The pub was rebuilt after the Great Fire and has been in continuous use ever since. Charles Dickens was a regular. Walk by the multi-tiered St. Bride's Church, said to be the inspiration for the multi-layered wedding cake. Go past the Royal Courts of Justice building, built during the reign of Queen Victoria in 1882. Then head over to Covent Gardens in the West End. There's been a market here since 1654. The area became something of a red light district, but was cleaned up in the mid-1800s. It was immortalized in the movie My Fair Lady, in the scene where Professor Higgins first meets Eliza Doolittle selling flowers on the street. The old market moved out in the 1960s, but reopened in 1980 as an entertainment center with street performers, shops, and restaurants. Next, head over to Trafalgar Square, a great public space. This walk from Tower Bridge to Trafalgar Square covered about 8 miles, but every step has something interesting to see and do. London is a great city to take time to travel.